Kia ora and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Lounge, a space for healthcare leaders to take a breath, take some time and get some fresh perspective on the work that you're doing. Ko Katie Toko Ingoa, and I am your host, and it's a delight to be back talking with you again. I've worked in healthcare for over 30 years, and I now get to work with healthcare leaders and their teams to help them feel supported, connected, optimistic about the work that you are doing. Now this week, there's a couple of things, as always. These kind of like things that just trickle into my head and potentially inspired by the fact that I managed to lose 2 pairs of glasses this week. But someone in a workshop I was running said, hey, our environment actually is not set up for us to work well together as a team. Along with that, and one day I found myself trying to do some work and getting really distracted and frustrated, and I looked around, it's like there's chaos. The desk is a disaster zone. And then maybe prompted by those 2 things and the loss of 2 pairs of glasses, did a bit of a massive splurge clean, where you actually throw out that stuff that you've been sitting there and you're like going, what is this for? Why do I need it? So we had a really good clean out. So this week my head is in this idea of our environments. Now, another one of the reasons why I thought environment was a good topic to just chew over a little bit is because there's elements of that are within your control. And right now in healthcare, wherever you are in the world, dear Lord, things can seem completely chaotic, out of your control, feeling powerless, stuck, along with a whole myriad of other feelings, I am sure. So I think in terms of a proactive approach and being useful and helpful in this space, try to think of ways that, okay, what is in my control? What can I actually do here? Because that generates energy, motivation, and enthusiasm to keep going, if not tackle some of the harder stuff. So an environment felt like something that, okay, there's going to be some things within your scope of control here. So that's a really important reason why. And I guess my first thought when I was coming up with this idea and what could I be chatting about and what would I pull on, I read a while ago, 2022 I think it is, according to the notes I appear to have made, a book called Joy at Work by Marie Kondo and Scott Sonnenschein. Now, right now, joy at work might be the furthest thing from your mind. So I reckon all the more reason to lean into that and consider where can you do that. I'm often talking about joy. Now, Marie Kondo, you may recognize that name from the life-changing magic of clearing up, tidying up. This book is then written by her and Scott Sonnenschein, who has done, I don't know how you describe him really, but I've done an online course with him, which was around resourcefulness, that balance between scarcity and abundance, and how actually when you have less, you can be inspired to innovate, to do more. He's also the author of a book called Stretch. So 2 kind of different perspectives, one from a very tidying up place and one from a more work-centered, business-centered mind coming together to write this book. And I created a series of quotes on Instagram at the time and really just pulling out some of the key points and factors that I'd got out of that book. But it was quite a useful reflection to go back and look at those, because they're kind of talking about the fact that our environments influence how we feel when we're at work. If we think about all that chaos or powerlessness or whatever it is, or the overwhelm that you might be feeling, sometimes just by having things a bit tidy or a bit more organized can help just lift you up a little bit. So they say in it, the goal of the method share in this book is not just to have a nice, neat desk, but to begin a dialogue with yourself through tidying, to discover what you value by exploring why you are working in the first place and what working style you want. So it's kind of goes quite deep quite quickly, I suppose, into this idea that the way we set ourselves up and the things that we are working on tell us quite a lot about ourselves. But then there's this idea that a messy environment does tax our brains. When you're surrounded by clutter, then your brain is trying to register all those things and trying to work, where did I put that? Where did I put that? Hence my, lost glasses kind of situation. And I remember once I went to see a new charge nurse and was chatting to him about, I think, some quality stuff, or I think trying to help him in terms of incident management. And I said, oh, have you got the thingy? And he just turned around and went to his filing cabinet and pulled it out. And I'm like, oh my Lord, I'm so impressed with you. You've got a system, you've got a filing place. And he said, yeah, because there's so much new to learn in this job. The last thing I need is the faff and anxiety of trying to work out where I've put things. So being organised really, really matters. Now, a rabbit hole we could very easily dive into, and I did slightly before starting recording this. I got quite interested and I had to go, stop, was a quote by, attributed to Albert Einstein, who was once turned out to have apparently said, if a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, of what then is an empty desk a sign? So if you do drop into the rabbit hole, you will find a whole load of, actually, no, messy desks are really important. No, clean desks are really important. And I think what the Joy at Work book cuts through is it doesn't say one thing or the other. It's talking about that, finding out what matters to you and how you work. And I certainly couldn't work on a completely empty desk. I walked into an office space the other day. It was obviously one of those hot desking shared spaces, but it was so soulless. And it was actually pretty empty, which didn't help, I suppose, the whole thing. But it was just, that's actually made me laugh thinking about that. It was soulless because there were no souls there. There was a few people there, but even their desks, it was just like, oh, this cannot be an inspiring, encouraging or energizing place to work. And I need those bits and sparks of things. So there's a whole load around the layout of your desk and what does it look like and what have you got where. And you also fall into and who is sitting where. How are people placed? Who are you close by? And there's some evidence there and research there around the working relationships are formed by how close you are sitting next to people. So that's all of those things that factor into the environment. But sometimes the who you're sitting with, you have less control over. And so the your desk, and if you're hot desking, what do you take? What do you include? And all that sort of stuff. So the your desk part is probably where I was thinking to start with at any rate. Now, going back to that sense I had when I was trying to do some work and was getting very distracted and frustrated, Scott Sonnenschein in the book talks about comparing this to sort of multitasking. And they said those who multitask often do so not because they're particularly good at it, but because they struggle to block out distractions and focus on a single task. And that was definitely the state I was in. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I've got to do that. Oh yeah, and I've got to do that now. Oh yeah, that's there. So the idea of the focus part, and I guess this book, the Joy at Work, because a lot about being out of focus, enables you to think about, okay, what do I need for this particular piece of work that I'm doing, or that wherever I'm at, whether that be an office, a desk, a clinic, a ward. So what I like about this idea of your environment is that it can transcend across the whole spectrum of wherever you are working in healthcare. So whether it is that you are primarily at home, whether you've got an office based, or whether you are working in a ward or a clinic environment, whether that be in hospital or in primary care, there's a lot we can do around our environment spaces. Diving into the ward space for a minute, and from my own perspective, we did a program called the Releasing Time to Care program when I was a charge nurse, Productive Ward it's called in the NHS, and one of the components of it was this thing called a well-organised ward. And one factor or one tool that we used to help us organise our ward spaces was a video walk, and we actually we'd walk into the ward and video the different spaces and then sit back and look at that video, and you suddenly see your environment in a completely different light. It is a fabulous way of just giving you a fresh perspective. And not so long ago, I was realizing that the way the office here, the desk that I've got at home is set up really wasn't conducive. I was just I was just hitting too many struggle points. So I took a video of my, very embarrassing actually, because it was a disaster zone. Anyway, but it did give me some insights into go, right, now I can see, because that's there, that doesn't make sense. Okay, I can reorganize some stuff. So a video is a phenomenal way of reviewing your environment. Now, again, on that ward-based space, and that can work in any environment wherever you are, and there's a connection here between wards and clinic and spaces that are inviting other people into, whether that be patients or your team or other staff, is the fact that that's the impression that they get. And as well as what do you want to feel when you walk into your desk first thing on a Monday morning? Do you want to see it cluttered with a whole load of last week's work and the post-it notes and the stuff that you haven't got to? Or do you want to see a level of organisation that is going to set you up for a good start to the day? I know chaos will hit you soon, but, set you up for a good start. Do what you can to give yourself the best fighting chance on a day-to-day basis. But also, what is it saying to the people that are coming into that environment? Now, there was a program done in the NHS called 15 Steps. Now, the 15 Steps program came from a patient experience, and a mother said, I can tell what kind of care my daughter is going to get within 15 steps of walking onto a ward. So that generated a program and a quality improvement toolkit, I suppose, to help ward teams look at their environments and consider what does it look like from the perspective of somebody walking in, somebody who is usually scared, vulnerable, unsure, all of that sort of stuff. We particularly take hospital environments for granted, and it's really interesting. As I said, I've worked 30 years in healthcare, and pretty much every single one of those has been in a hospital environment. I now get to work in lots of other places, so I'm getting my mind blown and my wide world opened, if you like, to me. But going into so despite all those years, I love walking through a hospital. I get a real buzz from it. Now, whether that was connected to the fact that I thought when I had my heart surgery at the age of 7, I thought this was a big adventure and exciting, or whether it's just because I've just spent so many years in a hospital, I don't know. However, going in, walking next to Adam when he was going in for his chemotherapy and his radiation, you see everything in a different light, completely different light. So it is really interesting. The reason why you are showing up an environment does change how you perceive it and how you view it. So it can be really useful to just, again, take that video or just ask someone, what do you think when you first walk in here? And I think we can hair around so much that we don't realise the time we save if we spend a bit of time doing a bit of sorting and tidying, how much time that saves us. We're not very good at the investment, the proactive space. We'd much rather be reactive. Unlike that charge nurse who was really clear on the fact that this job is hard. I don't need to make it harder by not being able to find things. I think if you're working on a ward in a hospital, maybe the ward notes, the patient notes. How easy is it to find those? I empathise with anyone who is struggling in that space right now, and there is not an easy answer. It is relentless work to get there. So yeah, there's lots of things in this environment around the your space, the impression from other people. And so we've hit on a couple of things here. The purpose, the why are you in this space and what are you intending to do in this space? That helps you decide what does it need in this environment. And what are those feelings? What is going to set you up for success at the beginning of the day? Now, another book that I read, probably back when I was a service manager, actually, and it helped me when I got into the service manager job, very overwhelmed by the sudden expanse of everything. Hey, look at me go there. Managed to press pause to have a cough and clear my throat. Look at me, almost a professional. So yeah, I was in the service manager job. Now moving from the charge nurse to a service manager job, big, massive leap. But the charge nurse job is no easy walk in the park role, right? Any of you that are doing it would know that. The service manager job, it suddenly kind of exploded. I suddenly had a lot more hats to wear, if you like. And there was different services, different people, all sorts of stuff. And so the overwhelm, I was like, okay, whatever system I was using as a charge nurse is not going to work here. I need to increase it, up it, alter it, tweak it, whatever that is. And a book I came across then is called Work Smarter, Live Better. I actually think it's an absolutely god-awful title. It's one of those titles that actually makes me cringe to say it. However, there were some very, very handy tips in this book. As always, I will pop the link to the books that I'm mentioning into the show notes, so do check those out. And the things that... There was a lot of useful things in this book, so I would recommend it. And actually, the guy that wrote it, whose name has completely escaped my head right now, has got some videos and lots of videos on lots of different things. So his website is quite handy for just short little tips and tricks and ideas for you in terms of that organization, productivity kind of world. That's where he lives in. But he talked about, Cyril somebody, that was his name. It'll come to me. So anyway, his idea, particularly around organising your stuff, which is what we're thinking about here, he pulled it into a 3-step process. Nothing better than a 3-step process, right? Step 1, have a think. So this is where you go, what do I need in this environment? What is my job? What am I doing? What are the roles and responsibilities that I have? So again, going back to the Marie Kondo idea around the what matters, what your purpose is, why are you working, that sort of stuff. So have a think. Think about, I use the frame hats, I don't know if that's a good one, but think about all the hats you have to wear in your role and create the sort of categories of stuff that you do. So there was people management, there was the quality stuff, there was the production planning, there was the, think of all the components of your job, your responsibilities, and write them down. And that's almost the backbone of your filing system, is what Cyril says. So now you've got those kind of categories. And then he says, so step 2 is sweat. So step 1 was think. That's the having a think about what are you doing? Why are you here? What do you want to feel? I would add into this bit the what do you want to feel like? What's the environment that you want to create for yourself? What do you need? What inspires you, encourages you, energizes you? All that sort of stuff. And then the step 2, sweat, which is you get rid of the stuff that you don't need, basically. And that's why the sweat comes in, because actually we hang on to things just in case so much. So again, going back to the well-organised ward component, that just in case was one of those real challenge points, because that can be waste in our system. So do you need it? When was the last time you used it? What is the worst thing that could happen if you threw it out? Can I easily find it somewhere else? Organising my physical space has got a lot easier by organising my digital space. So knowing where I can find things and not having to have a physical copy of everything, very, very handy. But creating things like hyperlinks or links to the things that I'm going to use most often just makes my life a bit easier. So an example is that there's a document I frequently send out to the people that I work with when I'm coaching them, and I've now embedded that into a thing, so I don't have to go and find it every time and link it to the thing. I can just press this particular button in the in email, and it just attaches the link. So little tweaks of things that you use often, but equally it's the get rid of the stuff that you don't need. And then step 3 is organize. And one of the lines in his book is, your desk has not been designed to be your task management system. So the way you set things up is there to help you be as productive as possible. And that does not mean, maybe, but I would suggest, maybe encourage that a gazillion post notes is not the way to go. I'm a big post-it note person. In fact, I was on a meeting just this week and I couldn't find the note. This is my chaos story here. I couldn't find the notebook that I had used to make notes on this same topic. I was having a second meeting with somebody on a similar topic, and I wanted to put them in the same place, and I couldn't find it. I thought, I haven't got time to find it now. I'll just use post-it notes. And so I've now got this sack of post-it notes, and I still haven't found the original one. So I am not I am clearly, this podcast is the podcast I need to listen to right now to sort my stuff out a little bit better. Anyway, moving on. Step 1, have a think. Step 2, do the sweat, the work part. What can you get rid of? What doesn't need to be here anymore? And then there's the organised stuff. And there are a couple of things that I have kept close from this book that I read many years ago, like I say, when I was a service manager, is the stuff that I use every day needs to be right next to me. There's no point having the stuff that you use every day miles away. And that can just take a little bit of reflective thinking to work out what are those things and just to be intentional about it, because we can just get on automatic pilot. So having a think about the things that you are actually using every day rather than the things that you think you are. Does that make sense? Now, while Cyril, whatever his surname is, I'm so sorry, Cyril, talks about the organising, I have found an organising system that's kind of trumped his suggestions around some things. And this has come from another person whose name I've forgotten. Why do I just write the titles of the book down in my notes, not the authors? Why do I do that? Anyway, he wrote Building a Second Brain. And I think I've mentioned it before. I've definitely mentioned it in the No Jedi email, and I've done some links to that in that. So there's a good little tangent moment to remind you can sign up for the weekly email, that bright spot in your inbox to inspire, encourage, and just drop a little bit of sprinkle magic into your week. You can sign up at katiequinney.com/subscribe or noodle around in the website for the free resource you want to download that will also get you onto that mailing list. So yeah, Building a Second Brain. He has written a second book, whatever his name is, called Para, P-A-R-A. And it's his process for organising. Now, while the Building a Second Brain was a lot about note-taking, obviously I wasn't paying attention to that one when I was having this meeting with my lost notebook. However, mainly his Building a Second Brain was about the digital note-taking. And to be honest, I was kind of like, it was useful. There were some very useful bits in it, and I learned quite a lot about my note-taking style. Comes back to why you take notes, what's the purpose of the notes, all that sort of stuff. That's important stuff to know. So that connects in with that first step, think. But it also then goes on to the how you organise your notes. And so Para was the organising framework that he uses. And so P stands for projects. So what's a project that you're working on? And a project is something that has got a time date. So planning the party, planning a holiday, I'm trying to think of a healthcare related example now, but I can't think of anything. Sorry, mind blank. But they are the time limited things. So here's a project, there's a start date, there's an end date to it. And that goes in your project folder. And then the second one is A, which is areas. Now this is stuff that is more ongoing. So this would be your people development if you're a people leader. This would be your quality improvement work if that's the risk management, the stuff that you are going into on a regular basis. But it's an area of your work rather than a specific project. So there's the difference between those two. And they're the two folders that you're going to dive into. So I now organize my emails like this, as well as my folders on my computer like this as well. The third section is R for resources. So this is all that stuff that comes in that you might need one day, or that will be useful to reference or to look at. Again, you can make subfolders into that, but I have to say when it comes to resources, I tend to just chuck it all into there because search is amazing. And then your fourth one, A, is archives. So the fact that when a project is finished, gets moved to the archive folder. So it's all going to be there. You can recall it. You can go back to it. You can bring it back and have another look. Nothing is lost forever. So that has really helped me organize my digital space. And certainly I can now, if I'm on a call to someone and they're talking about something, I can very easily click to either the image or the document or the file based on that system. So that has been quite useful. They're the things that I have probably over time evolved my clearly not yet done ability to organize my environment. But I think, again, I'll come back to this idea, this bit of a challenge for you. I'd encourage you, maybe it's more of an encouragement, it's to look at your environment, to have a think. Okay, what is it that I want to feel when I come into work? What is the environment saying to other people, and what do I want it to say to me and to those visiting it? Maybe take a video to help get you inspired or look at it from a different perspective. And then consider, okay, what is it that I don't need? What is actually getting in the way of me doing the work that I want to do in this space? And what is helping me? What is going to encourage me, inspire me? What is going to make it feel great for me to come in, but for other people to come into this environment? And then just take those first couple of steps. You'll see it and then do it. And then, as I clearly have to do, keep revisiting that sort of stuff. Now, Marie Kondo would not be proud of that, because she'll often say if you do it once and you do it well, then you're set for life. I clearly am not that good at that sort of stuff, and I have to revisit it and retweak it. And I think things occur in life, jobs change, work changes, gets thrown out, chaos reigns again, and you have to restart. So I'm a big restarter. Fall down, get back up. That must be my motto. So there you go. There's the top tips. We've got a few books. We've got Joy at Work. We've got the Work Smarter, Live Better, and we've got the Building a Second Brain and Para. Along with this, we've got this idea of the 15 steps challenge, which actually you can't find a lot of information about now. Clearly, it was a project or a piece of work some time ago now, and there's not a lot out there, but there's a couple of links I'll be able to pop into the show notes for you. Alrighty, there you go. I will look forward. I would love to hear, what have you found out about your environment? What is the working environment like for you, and what will make it better? What are the things that are in your control that is going to give you some energy, some optimism, some encouragement to keep doing the incredible and amazing work that you are doing? Thank you for listening. I'm Katie, I'm your host, and I will be back next week with another episode of The Leadership Lounge. Take care.